Raider Nation, what's going on? Good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, with the Raiders news that I think that the nation needs to know. Waking up here on Tuesday, February 18th, and then near the end of today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about some of these, we'll just call it Maxx Crosby trade rumors. I saw a lot of shenanigans on social media over the weekend. We'll talk about a trade that's been thrown out there, but again, if you follow me on social, you probably already know where I'm going to go with this one. And then at the end, there is a big day that happens today in the NFL. We'll kind of talk about what the NFL franchise tag window is, maybe some of the players that could be tagged, and I'll kind of go through what the prices could be if the Raiders wanted to tag any of those players. For those that don't know, I'm Mitchell Renz. You're watching the Raiders Report. You can always hit that subscribe button for Raiders videos every single day. We're also going to be live later on today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'll be live for 2.5-ish hours. Those are always our big-time shows. Thousands of Raiders fans always pull up, and I hope to see you there. All right, so first off, let's talk about the news that happened yesterday. I broke it down in a short, and it was Champ Kelly and the Las Vegas Raiders mutually agreed to part ways. I thought this move was surprising simply because I really did think that Las Vegas was going to keep Champ around. Now, when you bring in a new regime with Pete Carroll, with John Spytek, it's not uncommon for them to bring in their own people, their own regime. That's not the weird part about it. What I found a little bit interesting, and I almost wonder if there was maybe a change of heart. Maybe Champ thought he was going to get the Jacksonville Jaguars job, which he did interview for that, but he didn't. He's not one of the 5 finalists, so he's obviously not going to get that gig. Maybe he is going to get an opportunity with another organization. I mean, you never know exactly how that's going to go, but I found it surprising because when the Raiders moved on from Antonio Pearson, they moved on from Tom Telesco, the man that was making moves for the Raiders was Champ Kelly. And they weren't major moves, but he signed 14 players to reserve and future contracts. Essentially, I would call it the practice squad. So if you're allowing somebody to make those type of moves before you go out and you hire your GM and your head coach, teams usually do that when they plan on keeping that guy. We'll see what ends up happening. Again, these are reserve future contracts. They are most, like $1 million, right? We're talking about bottom of the roster type of players. Now, some of them are dudes that made the 53, somebody like a Christian Wilkerson, for example, or a Tyreek McAllister. That's the type of level of player that we're talking about. But overall, I was surprised because I know the Raiders value Champ Kelly. I will admit my dyslexia, when I saw the news happen, I mean, you guys can say me if you agree with it, but when I saw the news, I go, oh my God, Chip Kelly. My dyslexia was bad, and I kind of just effed it up right there. So real quick, though, I'm going to wish the best to Champ. He's been with this organization since 2022. Quite frankly, I think he got the fact that he was able to stick around as long as what he stuck around for in situations involving Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, and the fact that he was able to stick around for a little bit, I think shows that he is a well-liked and respected guy. But at the same time, you're bringing in a brand new regime, and sometimes you got to move on. So seriously, and I mean this, I wish Champ Kelly nothing but the best. And quite frankly, I don't really think that you're going to find many Raiders people out there that don't feel that exact same way. He was a well-respected person in that room. It just never quite exactly worked out. Now, since we did move on, one of the things that you got to think about is every single move has to have an impact some way or another. I'm not saying that it is going to impact the Raiders in one way or another, but you got to at least think, when the Raiders move on from somebody, how could that impact the team moving forward? The number one way that I thought about it was Justin Fields. And, obviously there was a lot of speculation on what certain quarterback contracts could look like. I saw over the weekend it was reported Darnold could get 4 years, $170 million. I also saw it was reported that Russell Wilson could get 2 years, $80 million. I ain't paying any of those guys anywhere close to that type of money, quite frankly. And another name that's being thrown out there is Justin Fields. And Fields is looked at somebody that, we could bring in on a cheaper deal, maybe a 1-2 year type of prove-it contract, and then you're able to build everywhere else around Fields. And one of the reasons why that connection was there was because Champ Kelly was a part of the Chicago Bears regime that drafted Justin Fields back in round 1 when he was with the Bears, right? So, there was a bit of a connection there. Now, I almost wonder, Antonio Pierce is the person that brought in Luke Getsy last season. It's been very well documented. But I almost wonder if Champ Kelly maybe had, a little bit of say since they did work with each other back in Chicago. And when you're OC and you're an assistant GM in Chicago or doing a lot of draft stuff, I would imagine that you think the same way about a prospect, and they're probably thinking the very similar about Fields. So the fact that the Raiders now moved on from Champ Kelly, I'll admit, I feel like the possibility of getting Fields does go down a little bit because of that relationship that the Raiders have lost. Let's get into the next thing here. It's around Maxx Crosby, and he posted this on Twitter. And I don't know if he posted this on Twitter and people are just dumb, or if they just know like they can talk about Crosby and people are just going to interact with it, like kind of like I did. Crosby tweeted, "Spent 48 hours in the Bay this weekend. Easily one of the best experiences I've had so far as a professional. The amount of love y'all showed for this fourth rounder from Eastern Michigan was humbling. I was just a young kid chasing my dream and trying to figure it out when I first touched down in Cali as a rookie, going from Oakland to Alameda and the city and being with the people was iconic and means more to me than anything, and impact is inspiring in everything." Sorry about that. I can't read. "Spend 1 year in the town and the rest is history. The town will forever hold a special place in my heart. To everyone I encountered out there, I love y'all. We will be back again soon." And shout out to Jumpman23. So he did an event out there, and I messaged Max over the weekend, and I was like, hey man, hope everything went well. And I was like, even I'm kind of getting sick and tired of the contract extension talks. Like, when are you finally going to get it done? And, Max has been very busy, and I don't expect him to get back to me. And when he does, he does. When he doesn't, it is what it is. But what I don't understand is how I saw so many 49ers people over the weekend being like, Max loves the Bay. Max said that he's going to return soon, so therefore the 49ers are going to trade for him. I just don't know how you think 2 and 2 is going to go together, where, don't get me wrong, Max is going to want to go to whatever team pays him. And if the Raiders don't offer him a contract extension, then he is going to entertain the idea of being traded. That's nothing new. But him saying that he loved the Bay, and he basically just talks about everything about being a Raider, I don't understand how we're looking at Maxx Crosby being traded to the 49ers. Quite frankly, I think it's a team that's one of the more, least likely candidates to go out and get him, because they're already paying somebody like Nick Bosa. Now, don't get me wrong, Nick Bosa, Maxx Crosby, I know those two are actually good, but Max is not good with Nick's brother, Joey. And I know Nick and Joey are extremely close, so that would be something to look at. And, maybe Max just is able to roll his eyes at what I just said there about him and Joey, but, I'm a competitor, and I like when guys go out there and compete, but Max did call Joey a crybaby, where calling somebody a crybaby, it's not quite a competitive thing. I think that's a little bit more of a, shot to the heart, a little bit of a rib shot, which from rivals, for somebody who plays on the Chargers, many rib shots as you want. So that's why I'm going to sit up here and go, well, I don't know if he's... Some people think that he's just, poking fun at Joey Bosa. I actually think there's a legit rivalry there, and knowing the way Max thinks, and he wants to be the best in the league, and he wants to be the best in that, division, the best in that AFC West, I don't think that he actually likes Joey. All right, anyway, though, I saw a trade, and I got to talk about it because it was mind-blowing. And this one came in from the SF Niners, who I don't really know who they are, but they have a good following on YouTube. Though our 49ers channel here at Chat Sports crushes them. And then also, this is somebody who I'm friends with on social media, Football Forever. They put out a trade, and this is the trade. Maxx Crosby goes to the San Francisco 49ers, and also the Niners get a second-round pick, the number 37 overall pick. The Raiders get Deebo Samuel, their first-round pick, so number 11, a fourth-round pick, which is 137, and then another fourth-round pick in 2026. Respectfully, this is worse than Luka for Anthony Davis. I saw somebody tweet, or somebody commented when I said this is Luka for AD bad. Somebody's like, nah, this is Luka for D'Angelo Russell bad, and that one made me giggle. The bottom line is this. The Raiders, if they were going to make a trade for Crosby, it starts with 2 first-round picks. That's not changing. Mark Davis and Mark are close. But we also got to be able to sit here and realize Deebo Samuel doesn't have any value. He's 20 pounds overweight. He's fat. The Niners don't want him. And at that current contract that he's on, I'm not doing it. If the 49ers want to entertain an idea for Maxx Crosby in a trade, and if this is how you want to do it, you get Maxx Crosby, you give me your first-round pick this year, you give me your first-round pick next season, and I'll take Deebo Samuel's contract. That's how I would look at that deal. Whoever made that trade, and I say this because, it's going to be a little bit of an eye roll, a little bit of an oxymoron, for you to put that trade on paper and think that that makes sense and actually post it, is embarrassing. Like, that's Nico Harrison type of embarrassing. But then again, Nico Harrison was able to trade for Luka Doncic, was able to trade away Luka Doncic on a deal that I don't think would have got accepted on Madden. That's another deal that doesn't get accepted on Madden. And when I read a trade like that, you might as well hold up a sign with your Wreck-It Mayor and just say, I don't know ball. Before we get into the final thing here on today's show, it's going to be around some franchise tag players because today is a big day in the NFL. Reminder, I am going to be live this Thursday. It's kind of crazy, but this Thursday is my birthday. I'm going to be 32 years old. My dad's going to be in town. We are going to start the show a little bit earlier. We'll be live at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we're starting an hour early. We're going to do 3 segments like we usually do. It'll probably be 90 minutes to 2 hours of Raiders content. And then that last hour, maybe 90 minutes, we're going to get into some shenanigans. We're going to have a good time. My dad's really excited to be able to pull up with the nation. So if you're trying to get down and get a little bit wild on Thursday, I'm also off on Friday. Took off because my dad's in town for my birthday. Thursday is going to be a crazy day, so make sure you guys pull up. All right, final thing here. The 2025 NFL franchise tag window opens today. In history, if it's any indication, there's not going to be much action until the window is nearly closed on March 4th. This is from Ian Rappaport, and I totally agree with him, right? I always say on this show, deadlines make deals, and you're not really going to see any of these teams, I think, really strike a deadline deal until, and a franchise tag deal until, you get close to that deadline. The hope is also, like, if any of these players do get a franchise tag, they have to evaluate how much money it's going to cost for their team. On top of that, if you franchise tag a dude, and if the Raiders want to then steal one of those players, which one of the guys is T. Higgins, reminder, you have to give up 2 first-round picks in order to do it. No team is going to give up 2 first-round picks. At least the Raiders aren't going to give up 2 first-round picks for anybody that could be tagged. So according to Rapp and according to some other NFL sources out there, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of people even mentioned that could be franchise tagged. The first player is Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins, which this one does look like it's probably going to end up happening. It's no secret. Cincinnati, the franchise, they are actually the poorest franchise, and they don't have a lot of money. And they're going to pay Jamar Chase, if I had to guess, probably somewhere in that $36 to $37 million per year margin. And then they're not going to have money to get T. Higgins a long-term deal. However, what they could do is they could franchise tag him. And I think that's what you're going to see from Cincinnati. They're going to tag T. Higgins, and they're going to get him at $26.2 million. If you're wondering, wow, that sounds kind of high. For normal wide receivers, if you're franchise tagged this year, it's $25.7 million. Now, if my math here is correct, though maybe Rappaport did it wrong, because he's coming in here saying it's going to be $26.2 million. That could be saying it's $26.2 with a 120% increase. So when you franchise tag a player like 1 year and then you franchise tag them the following season, you have to give them a 120% increase in terms of like what that contract is. So it's going to be a little bit higher than what a normal wide receiver would get. But for T. Higgins at 26.2, I think it's a good value for Cincinnati. Quite frankly, I think it's pretty close to, I actually think it's less than what he would have got on the open market. But for the Bengals, it makes sense. For the Raiders, though, if you lose out on T. Higgins, that means that your top option is Chris Godwin, who's got a lot of John Spytek connections. But if he's the top wide receiver out there, it also means you might have to overpay him a little bit. For the Minnesota Vikings, it was reported that they could either entertain the idea of franchise tagging Sam Darnold, which would come in at $41 million. That number scares me because if the Vikings are legitimately having conversations with Sam Darnold about franchise tagging him, that's probably going to tell his agent, hey, we're looking in that number. I'm not paying Sam Darnold $41 million per year. The only way I would actually entertain that idea is if it was 1 year, fully guaranteed, you give him a 3-year deal and we can get out of those other 2 years. Then you know what? I'm okay with entertaining that idea. Paying Sam Darnold $40 million a year, though, on a 4-year deal and you can't get out of it after just 1, maybe even 2 years, I think it's going to be a disaster for the Raiders. It's just not I don't think it's a smart business move. Even if it ends up working out, I don't think it's a smart business move. Another player that they could tag is cornerback Byron Murphy Jr., though his price tag is going to be coming in there at $20. I would be shocked if they gave Byron Murphy Jr. $20 million, even if it was just on a 1-year deal. Really versatile corner. He's one of my favorite in this year's class, but that's a lot of money to give somebody that plays inside and outside. If he was only an outside corner, I could understand it, but I don't think that one's going to happen. Both of those players seem to be a little bit of an overpay, and I don't really think that the Vikings are going to do either of those players there. And then the final one here is Chiefs with Trey Smith. Now, if the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to franchise tag Smith, it looks like it's going to cost them somewhere at about $25.2 million, which Smith, that's a little bit more than I thought he was going to get on the open market. And if you're Kansas City and you're really worried about losing him, you offer Smith, hey, we're going to give you $25 million in 1 year. That's way more money than you would be able to make on the open market. And quite frankly, after the Super Bowl he had, and this is a player that I've started watching a little bit more tape on, he does really well against competition that he should do well against. When he's got to play against people that, are kind of on that same level as him, and, if you're going to be franchise tagged, if you want to be a player that gets paid $18, $20 million, you got to show up when it matters the most. When he goes up against, other better talent, I think he has significantly decreases his overall value, which I'm not going to lie, I was a lot higher on Trey Smith until I started watching a little bit more tape in the last week or two. And I had to watch the tape because when you watch that film with him against Philadelphia, it's somebody who just gets the shit kicked out of him for 4 quarters. And I get it. Philly kicked the shit out of Kansas City for 4 quarters. But if you're also even just considering paying arguably the top offensive lineman, some people had him as the top 5 overall player in overall free agency, you got to watch that tape and go, wow, I wonder if that happens before. And when you go back and you watch some Trey Smith tape against other good competition, to me, that's not somebody I'm paying $25 million a year for. Quite frankly, Trey Smith's value to me is going down. If Kansas City, I can understand them giving him that deal because they're the Chiefs and they're always going to be in that Super Bowl window as long as Patrick Mahomes has got a pulse. But man, oh man, I don't know. Trey Smith's value has fallen down a little bit for me. If you're wondering, Mitch, could the Raiders franchise tag any players? I don't see it being a possibility. For a quarterback, 41, there's nobody on our team for quarterback. Linebackers, $27 million. There's not a line. I love Robert Spillane. You ain't franchise tagging him at $27 million. Wide receivers, $25.7. There's nobody on our team there. Offensive line's $25. Defensive ends, $24. Defensive tackles, $23.5. Corners, $20. Safety, $19.6. Tight ends, $14. Running back is $13.6. And then even special teams. When you hear those values, they take the numbers from the top contracts and they put them together, and that's essentially what the franchise tag looks like. There's a lot of players that are hitting this, open free agency window, and I'm hoping that the Raiders actually start bringing back some of these guys, because usually when the franchise tag window opens, and again, this is just me doing this for as long as I have, they usually give players a week off after the Super Bowl, and then starting today until the rest of the week is when you're going to see some teams start to bring some players in because they're starting to, plan for the future. They're also, that March 4th franchise tag deadline. Even for the Raiders that aren't going to tag any players, you could see them starting to try to figure out which dudes are we going to try to bring back. And, you get first crack at it. And for the Raiders that have the amount of players that they do on defense that are about to hit that open market, when you brought back Rob Leonard and you brought back, Patrick Graham, you should be able to at least lay that foundation a little bit quicker because if they hit the open market, I'm telling you right now, those guys are going to make more money. And I want them to make more money, but at the same time, I want a lot of those dudes like an Adam Butler, a Kayvon Chasen, a Malcolm Kuntz, a Nate Hobbs, a Trevon Merrick. I want to figure out ways to bring some of those guys back because it makes us overall a better team. All right, y'all, I'm getting ready to hop on out here. Appreciate, everyone tuning in. It was a little bit of a quickie on Tuesday morning. Reminder, I'm going to be live today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Champ Kelly, wish you the best of luck. Maxx Crosby trade rumors, let's end them. Let's just get this contract extension done. And then the NFL franchise tag window. Watch out for guys like T. Higgins, Sam Darnold, Byron Murphy, Trey Smith. Reminder, as a team, you're only allowed to tag 1 player. So for the Vikings, I mentioned 2. You're only allowed to tag 1. And then for the Raiders, you're not going to end up tagging anybody. Hopefully, we bring back some of these dudes that are about to hit the open market. I'll see you guys here in a little bit. Enjoy your Tuesday, and make sure you pull up on Thursday for my birthday show. It's going to be wild.